As the reign of Robert Baratheon began, there were some on the Isle who started to whisper of a return to the old way. They were quiet at first, those whispers, like salt wind through rotted sails, but on Pike, they grew into thunder. Balon Greyjoy, Lord Reaper, did not dream of peace. He did not care for ties, or banners, or oaths sworn to a mainland king. What he dreamt of was fire, salt, iron. He watched his father Quellan die, blade in hand, fighting in a war he never believed in. And when Robert's rebellion was won, Balon bent the knee, but he never bowed. So he built ships, hundreds of them. And 6 years after the dragon fell, he crowned himself king of the Iron Islands. Beneath Naga's ribs, the bones of sea dragons, on the holy isle of Old Wick, a driftwood crown, a priest soaked in salt, the first king since Harren the Black. He struck first. Lannisport burned before the Lannisters ever woke. Ships, Tywin's pride, devoured by flame, the waves red with victory. The old way, reborn. But pride makes poor maps. His son Roderick fell at Seaguard, cut down by Jason Mallister. The attack failed, and the sea, once theirs, turned strange. Because Robert Baratheon was not idle, nor was his brother Stannis. Stannis, grim, unyielding, sailed forth with the Red Wine Fleet, Old Town ships, and Valyrian sails. He met the Iron Fleet at Fair Isle and caged them in like fish in a trap. He crushed them. Fury, his ship, split the sea and split the Greyjoys. Aeron's ship, Golden Storm, was swallowed whole. The sons of Harlaw drowned in silence. The Sunset Sea, once a road for reavers, now bore banners of the stag and the lion. And then, Robert landed. With Ned Stark at his side, Tywin behind, and Ser Barristan like lightning on Old Week, the Iron Islands fell. Harlaw, Orkmont, Great Wyke, all taken, no glory, no song, only ash and chains. Balon bent the knee again, but now, with sons dead, his fleet shattered and pride broken, the crown of driftwood turned soft in his hands. The rebellion ended on shattered stone and smoking salt. Pike fell. Roderick and Meryn Greyjoy died screaming in the surf. Balon bent the knee, but not for peace, for survival, and from him they took what hurt most, Theon, 10 years old, drenched in salt, blood and silence. They called it a ward, but everyone knew he was a hostage, a boy-shaped warning nailed to the Iron Islands. Eddard Stark raised him like a son, but never said the words. He grew in Winterfell's shadow, ate their food, wore their colours, but the Stark blood never ran in his veins. To the north, he was a Greyjoy. To the Ironborn, a Stark. And to himself, nothing at all. That's the true cost of rebellion. Not the dead, the forgotten. The Iron Islands lost a war, but Theon Greyjoy, he lost a self. And years later, when he returned to the Salt and Stone, they didn't welcome him home. Because no one welcomes a ghost. Long before kings started playing at thrones, before dragons returned to the skies, the dead stirred in the snow. 3 men rode out from Castle Black, rangers of the Night's Watch, Will, Garrod and Sir Waymar Royce, the youngest son of a great house, cloaked in black silk and pride. Will was the first to feel it, the stillness in the woods, no birds, no wind, just snow, falling like ash. He'd seen the wildlings days before, frozen, unmoving, their eyes wide with fear, dead. But now, the bodies were gone. Will warned them. Garrod, older than both, felt it too, said they should ride hard and fast back to the wall. But Sir Waymar, he wanted a fight or a story to send home. He drew his sword, walked into the trees, and vanished into a silence thicker than night. They came from the shadows, tall, pale, eyes glowing like blue stars, the White Walkers. Sir Waymar tried to stand. Steel met ice. his blade shattered like glass. They didn't speak. They didn't hesitate. They moved like mist and killed like gods. Will watched it all from the dark, frozen in place, breathing shallow, heart screaming. And then, when it was done, they looked at the boy in black, who'd once been a lord's son, and they raised him. So Waymar's eyes opened. They glowed blue. He rose. Will ran. No sword, no pride, just fear, the kind that eats your name and leaves you hollow. He crossed the forest. He crossed the frost. And he brought the truth to men who would never believe it. That on the edge of the world, the dead no longer slept. North of Winterfell, beneath the shadow of the wall, a Stark lord rode with justice on his blade and burden in his bones. Ned Stark, Warden of the North. He took his sons to see death, to teach them honor, but what they found was legacy. A direwolf, dead, her ribs cracked with the antlers of a stag, prophecy in blood. The sigil of House Stark slain by the sigil of House Baratheon. An omen, if you believe in such things. And the Starks, they do. But death is never alone in this world. She left behind 5 pups, blind and whimpering, their fur still wet from the womb. 5, 1 for each Stark child. Robb the heir, Sansa the lady, Arya the wild heart, Bran the dreamer, Rickon the innocent. The North remembers. Jon Snow, the bastard in black, hung back in silence. Not a son, not a lord, just ghost in the snow. And then he found a 6th, white as frost, red eyes burning like embers in a winter hearth. Ghost, his, a creature out of myth, for the boy out of place. It was Maester Luwin who said they'd die, that they were too young, too wild. But it was Jon who spoke the truth. The direwolf is the sigil of your house. They were meant to have them. And so they did. No one saw what it meant. Not yet. That the wolves would grow as the children did. That their fates were entwined, bone, blood, and soul. Each beast a shadow of its master. Each howl a warning. From that day on, the North had more than men. It had wolves, guardians, omens, and for a time, hope. Because every war has a beginning, every throne a storm, and sometimes the winds of change howl first, through the mouth of a direwolf. This was how the game began. Ned Stark was never comfortable with peace. War was cruel, but it was simple. Peace came with letters. The first said Jon Arryn was dead, his friend, his mentor, the hand of the king. The second said the king himself was coming, with his entire court. Catelyn found him in the Godswood, alone, cleaning ice, not praying, not grieving, just sharpening 6 feet of northern steel. She told him Jon was gone, and Robert was coming to drag Ned into the fire. South, to court, to politics, to wolves in lion skins. To sit on the small council and pretend the realm wasn't rotting from within. Ned had buried too many friends already. Jon, Brandon, Lyanna. Especially Lyanna. Robert had loved her once, claimed her, promised her the crown. All that remained was a tomb. Now Robert rode north, not for memories, but for a sword. He'd ask Ned to become the hand, and Ned would say yes, because Ned Stark was a man of duty. And duty, in Westeros, is another word for death. In the free city of Pentos, beneath silk canopies and the scent of spiced wine, the last dragon's sister was being sold. She was scarcely more than a child, 13 years old, barefooted on cold marble floors, clothed in the gossamer silks of men who saw her as coin. Her name was Daenerys. Born in the storm that shattered Dragonstone, raised in the shadows of exile, and promised to a warlord whose language she did not know. Her brother, Viserys, called himself a king, but wore no crown, held no lands. His throne was made of rage and memory, and in his hands she was not a sister. She was a key, a bride price, a bridge to his broken destiny. She had never seen Westeros, yet she was told to long for it. Told it was hers, by blood, by fire, by right. But all she knew were foreign roofs, borrowed beds, and the fear in her stomach when Viserys looked her way. And now, Illyrio Mopatis, fat with secrets and dripping with gold, draped her in gauze and gems. He summoned her to meet her husband-to-be, Khal Drogo, a warlord of 40,000 horsemen, a killer of men, silent and tall, with a braid that reached his thighs and had never been cut. He looked at her once, just once, and rode away. They told her that meant he approved. No one asked if she did. She stared into her bathwater that night, her skin scalded, her thoughts drifting like steam. The stones of Pentos felt no different than the ones before. She had no roots, only wings not yet grown. She didn't know that dragons slept beneath her skin, but history would remember. It would remember the girl who stood on a balcony that day, wind-tangling, silver, hair, and felt the chill of her fate slide over her like a chain. This was where her story began, not with fire nor blood, but with silence, obedience, and a fear she would one day burn away. They held a feast that night in Winterfell. Wine flowed like the weeping water, and yet Jon Snow sat low among squires and shadows. Not for lack of hunger, no, he was fed well enough. But there are places a bastard does not sit, even with wolf's blood in his veins. He watched them. The king, bloated and laughing. The queen, golden and cold as a frozen coin. And her boy, Joffrey, already a little tyrant in silk. And Tyrion, the dwarf with eyes like blades, clever eyes that saw too much. Ghost sat silent beneath the table, pale and watchful, the only creature in that hall who matched Jon's silence. Then came Benjen Stark, brother of the Lord, cloaked in black and smelling of the wall. "You drink like a man grown," he said. But Jon was not grown, not yet, not by birth, nor by burden. "I'll ride north with you," Jon declared. "I'll wear the black." Benjen's face darkened. "You know nothing of it, boy. The wall is no place for children dreaming of glory. You trade the warmth of a woman's skin for ice and silence." Jon bristled. "I won't father a bastard." The pain of that word, as if it weren't carved into his very name. And so he fled, pride burning hotter than the wine. But it was outside, in the quiet, where he found the sharpest truth. Tyrion Lannister, crouched like a gargoyle on the ledge. "You're Ned Stark's bastard," he said. "Not cruel, not kind, just true." Jon flinched, but Tyrion only smiled. "Never forget what you are. Wear it like armor. Then it can never be used to hurt you." And in that moment, it clicked. The dwarf, mocked all his life, had built himself a wall no blade could pierce. Jon, young, angry, alone, began to see how a bastard might do the same. They say Ghost never made a sound that night. Just sat there, eyes red as fire, still as snowfall. And Jon Snow began to harden, not into ice, but steel. In the cold stone heart of Winterfell, a girl sat with a needle in hand, and hated every second of it. Arya Stark was not like her sister. Sansa embroidered roses, dreamed of princes, curtsied like a swan. Arya? Arya wanted out of the sewing circle, out of the dresses, out of the life they told her she was supposed to want. While the other girls whispered about Prince Joffrey and marriage and songs, Arya's fingers fumbled the thread, her eyes drifting toward the sound of swords clashing in the yard. That was the rhythm she knew. Not the lullaby of silk and manners, but the clang of steel, the grunt of effort, the sting of wind on her cheeks. So what did Arya do? She ditched the lesson, skipped out, vanished like a shadow, and made her way to the real world, the training yard, where boys became warriors, and no one cared if your stitches were crooked. And there, waiting in the hall like a ghost denied a seat at the feast, was Jon Snow, her bastard brother, her favourite brother, the only one who ever really saw her. Jon didn't talk down to her. He didn't tell her to smile or sit straight or act like Sansa. Instead, he gave her a gift. A sword. Not a toy, not a joke. A real blade, light and sharp and deadly. Her size, her style. "I had Mikken make it for you," he said. "You'll need to practice, but you'll be good." And Arya held it in her hand like it was a part of her she never knew was missing. "What do I do with it?" she asked, and Jon smiled that crooked Jon Snow smile and said the most iconic line in her story: "Stick them with the pointy end." That was it. That was the moment. A girl, no longer just a lady in waiting, not a pawn in marriage games, not a name on a family tree, but a Stark with a sword, a wolf with teeth. And that sword, it had a name, Needle. Because you see, Arya might not sew like Sansa, but she could still use a needle, just not the kind her scepter would have approved of. This is the beginning of Arya's real story, not the songs, not the feasts, but the steel. This was the first cut, and it would not be the last. They say the boy loved to climb, said there wasn't a tower in Winterfell he hadn't conquered by 7. He'd race the wind, hands scraped raw, clothes torn to ribbons, face grinning like a prince above the clouds. He was Bran Stark of Winterfell, and he never fell. Until he did. The king had come, Robert Baratheon, loud, laughing and reeking of wine. With him, the queen, hair like gold, eyes like knives, and her brother, Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, the Lion of Lannister, as pretty as he was deadly. Winterfell was full of feasts and whispers that week, but Bran didn't care for whispers. He climbed. And what did he find, high above the world, in the broken tower where no one went? He found them. The queen and the knight, tangled in each other like snakes in heat. He didn't understand what he saw, but they did. Jaime moved first, calm, cold, deadly. "How old are you, boy?" he asked. Bran just stared. 7. He was 7. And that's when Jaime Lannister said the words that would haunt the realm. "The things I do for love." And then he pushed him. No sword, no poison, just air and stone and silence. The boy who never fell, fell. And with him, the first stone was cast. The wheel began to turn. The game had begun. Some say he was broken that day. Others say he was awakened. But one truth remains. The boy who fell from the tower would never walk again, but he would fly. Winterfell mourned in silence. The hearth was lit, but the warmth had gone. Lord Eddard Stark had ridden south to serve a king, and left a kingdom behind in his children's hearts. Bran, the second son, lay broken, his small frame still and silent. The boy who loved to climb now drifted between worlds, and in that stillness, things began to move. Robb Stark, not yet a man, wore a man's duties like armor. He barked orders, straightened his shoulders, tried to keep the tears in his eyes from falling. And Maester Luwin, his chain clinking softly, watched over the boy who wouldn't wake. The Lannisters lingered. Jaime Golden and silent stood at Bran's bedside far too long, his knuckles pale, his eyes unreadable. Tyrion, the imp, with eyes too clever and a tongue too sharp, offered jests that stabbed more than soothed. And Lady Catelyn Stark watched them both with suspicion coiled tight around her ribs. Then came the dreams. Bran, flying through the sky. A crow, three-eyed, cawing truths no child should hear. Old Nan spoke of ancient darkness and long winters, stories meant for firesides, but the chill in the air said they were more than tales. In the shadows of the past, something stirred. Magic not seen for centuries stretched its wings. And then the dagger came, a man in the dark, no face, no mercy. A blade of Valyrian steel, rare, deadly, precise, pressed to the throat of a sleeping boy. But Catelyn Stark was still a wolf, and she fought, hands bleeding, teeth gritted, until Bran's direwolf, Summer, sprang from the dark. Teeth sank, the man screamed, and it was over. But nothing would ever be the same. A weapon made for kingslaying, found at the throat of a broken boy. A mystery wrapped in gold and silence. Catelyn held the dagger in shaking hands. Her eyes turned south, toward answers, toward war. The blade shimmered in firelight. Not steel of the north, but a foreign thing. Valyrian, rare and soaked in blood. Catelyn stared at it, and a name came unbidden. Lannister. Tyrion had joked about daggers, and in that moment, the joke turned to judgment. A mother's grief became purpose. A whisper of conspiracy wrapped itself around her heart. Someone had sent a killer to her child's bed, and Catelyn Stark would not wait for another. She left Winterfell in secret, the cold wind chasing her south. Every step toward King's Landing a drumbeat of vengeance. Behind her, Winterfell shifted. Robb stood taller, Bran slept deeper, and Summer kept watch, growling at ghosts only he could sense. The direwolves knew something. They always had. Bran dreamed still, flying without wings, a crow with 3 eyes leading him into darkness. The wolf beside him, never leaving. This was no ordinary slumber, no ordinary child. Beyond the wall, deeper than ice, older than men, the powers of old stirred. And in this boy's broken body burned something Westeros had long forgotten: magic. The stories old Nan told, of the long night, White Walkers, and the end of days. They weren't just stories. In silence, Bran changed. In silence, war crept closer. Catelyn would reach King's Landing, and her presence would set the pieces in motion. Her suspicions would be believed, and the lion would bare its fangs. In the shadows of politics and pride, a single dagger aimed at a boy would carve open the realm. The wolves had been quiet too long. The dragons slept across the sea. And now, from this one moment, from steel and shadow, the great game was no longer a whisper. It was war. Only playing. Just a girl with a stick and a dream, dancing on the riverbank with a butcher's boy, too kind to say no. And then the Golden Prince arrived, hair like sunlight, smile like poison. What's this? A lady sparring with a peasant? How quaint, he said, fingers already on his hilt, the lion in silk playing at war. The boy stammered, "We were just playing, my prince." "You don't raise sticks at nobility, butcher's spawn," he hissed, blade flashing free, a real sword now glinting with real intent. Arya stepped between them. "Leave him alone." And Joffrey laughed. "Do you know who I am? I could have his hand for this, yours too." The blade nicked Micah's cheek. The boy cried out, and that's when she moved, fast, wild, full of northern fury. Arya's stick cracked against his wrist, once, twice. The blade clattered to the mud. He screamed louder than the pain called for, loud like a boy used to getting his way. She didn't stop, not until he was in the dirt, face red, ego bleeding. Then came the growl, low, primal. Nymeria stepped from the trees, fur bristling, yellow eyes locked on the boy who thought he was king. "Get away!" Joffrey shrieked, scrambling. But wolves don't flinch. Her teeth sank into his arm like justice, made flesh. He howled, flailing, sobbing, blood on silk, crown slipping. Arya shouted, "Nymeria, no!" But wolves hear the heart, not just the words. When the prince dropped, whimpering like the spoiled thing he was, she pulled her back. "Go," Run, far as the wind takes you. Don't look back. And Nymeria did, because even a direwolf knows, in the south, truth is prey. Later, the queen's voice dripped with venom. The wolf bit my son, but the wolf was gone. Then bring me the other, she said. Lady, gentle, innocent, loyal. Sansa wept. Arya screamed. Ned held the blade himself. The sentence is mine to pass, he said, but his eyes were hollow. And the butcher's boy, cut down on the road. He ran, said the hound. Dogs are meant to chase. So the river ran red that day, not from war, not from justice, but from the pride of a prince, the silence of a sister, and the bite of a wolf who wouldn't kneel. Eddard Stark entered the gates of King's Landing not as a friend, but as a warning. This is not Winterfell, he thought, and these are not men of honour. Sir Hugh of the Vale, polished and proud, greeted him with a name and a whisper. Jon Arryn was asking about a book, my lord. Something about lineage. Ned nodded. He made a mental note. If a book killed a man, then the pages may yet bleed. The small council gathered like vultures. Grand Maester Pycelle, eyes watery, voice thin. Lord Arryn was troubled before the end. Too many questions, perhaps. Varys, soft-footed and softer-spoken, offered a smile too empty to trust. Secrets have sharp edges, Lord Stark. Jon cut too deep. And then Littlefinger, lounging like a cat in sunlight, said with a grin, Curiosity killed the hand. Let's hope it doesn't kill two. Ned said nothing. But in his heart, if they fear the truth, then the truth is worth fearing. He met the queen. Cersei, golden and cold, smiled as if she wore a mask. You must be weary from your travels, Lord Stark, she said. King's Landing is different. Beside her stood Jaime, all arrogance and armour. Winter's people, you Starks. Always so grim. We Lannisters prefer the sun. Ned looked at him. And yet you cast the longest shadows. That night, Ned sat alone. He turned the words over in his head. Jon Arryn, lineage, a book, a queen with secrets. He found something and they killed him for it. He could feel it, coiled beneath every smile, every title, every bow. The rot. The court was a nest of masks. Varys watched. Littlefinger laughed. Pycelle droned. Jaime flexed. Cersei ruled. And Ned listened. I will not play their game, he swore. But in the Game of Thrones, not playing is just another way to lose.